You know that feeling, right? When you ask an AI something important and it just gives you that digital shrug. Sorry, I can't access real-time information. It's frustrating.
Oh, definitely. We've all been there.
Well, today we're diving deep into why that happens and, maybe more importantly, a potential solution everyone's starting to talk about. The Model Context Protocol, MCP.
Right, MCP.
Think of this as our mission today.
Yeah.
Figure out what MCP actually is, why it's suddenly getting so much buzz, and what it might mean for, AI actually working smoothly
Huh.
with the tools and data we use every single day.
Yeah, making AI less of an isolated brain and more of a helpful partner.
Exactly. And we've dug into a bunch of sources. We're talking AWS, BotPress, Microsoft, Zapier, WorkOS, plus some independent takes to really get a 360 view.
So a really comprehensive look then.
Yeah, hopefully. We want to understand how we can finally get all this tech talk in the same language, sort of like USB-C, but for AI applications.
Mm.
Or maybe giving LLMs a backstage pass to the data concert.
I like that. A backstage pass. Because that core frustration is real. We have these amazing AI models, but making them do things with our existing systems, it's often been, well, clunky.
Super clunky, like building with mismatched Lego bricks every time.
Exactly. Reinventing the wheel for each connection.
So, okay, let's break it down. What is this Model Context Protocol? In plain English.
Okay, simplest terms. MCP is basically a new rulebook, an open standard started by Anthropic, designed to let AI models easily connect and, work with external stuff, databases, software APIs, web info.
An open standard.
Mhm.
So not just an Anthropic thing.
Right. They kicked it off, but the goal is for it to be open. Anyone can use it. Anyone can contribute. Think of it like a universal connector, a standard plug for AI.
A universal plug. I like that. That makes immediate sense. Bob Price had a good analogy, too, comparing it to stuff like HTTP or OAuth. How does that comparison hold up?
Well, that's a great way to think about it. Really fundamental stuff. Just like HTTP is the standard language web browsers use to talk to websites.
Right, the foundation of the web.
Exactly. And OAuth is that standard way apps securely share info without you giving away your password everywhere.
MCP wants to do the same for AI. It wants to standardize how AI models ask for data and how they get it back.
So a common language for AI data requests.
Precisely. Instead of every AI and every tool needing its own translator, MCP provides that shared language. It's potentially foundational, just like those other protocols were for the internet itself.
Okay, standard language. Got it. Now, what's the big problem this is solving? What's this integration hell BotPress talks about? Sounds not fun.
Yeah, integration hell is pretty apt, unfortunately. It describes the mess we're often in now. BotPress points out, if you want your AI to use, say, your CRM, your email, and your project management tool.
Which you probably do, right? For it to be really useful.
Exactly. But right now, you often have to build a separate custom connection and API integration for each one. It's like needing a different specific adapter for every single device you own.
I can already feel the headache. Right. It's a ton of extra work. You've got to handle authentication for each one, proving the AI is allowed access. Then you need to format the data from each system so the AI can understand it. Plus, you have to worry about hitting rate limits, how often you can even ask for data. It's all this complex plumbing.
That doesn't actually make the AI smarter, just connected barely.
Exactly. It's a huge time sink and complexity barrier.
Okay, so MCP is meant to cut through that.
Yeah.
How does it actually work under the hood?
Yeah.
Let's get a little technical, but, keep it understandable.
Okay, sure. MCP uses a kind of team structure. AWS had a funny comment like, "Yay, our very own,"
Yeah.
which captures some of the enthusiasm. Think of it like this.
Yeah.
You have the main AI applications, maybe Claude itself, or a coding helper like Cursor. These are the MCP hosts. They're the ones
Okay.
that need something.
Okay, the boss.
Sort of. Then, inside the host app, you have MCP clients. They're like intermediaries, helpers that take the request from the host and pass it along.
Got it. And where do they pass it?
They pass it to the MCP servers. These are the gatekeepers for the actual external tools and data, the databases, the APIs, file systems, whatever. They expose the functionalities and control access.
So the AI host doesn't just barge in. It goes through the client to the server, which guards the actual data source.
Precisely. It's a more organized, controlled flow.
And how do these pieces talk to each other?
Right.
I saw mentions of different communication methods.
Yeah. To be flexible, MCP supports a few ways. Think different ways to send a message. There's simple text input-output, like just typing back and forth.
Okay.
Then there's something called server-sent events, or SSE. That's good for when the server needs to push updates to the client in real time, like live notifications.
Oh, okay. Useful.
And finally, WebSockets. That's more like a continuous two-way phone call, constant connection. Having these options means MCP can fit into different software setups.
Right, flexibility is key. Okay, so let's walk through it. An AI needs data. What happens? Step by step. BotPress laid it out pretty clearly.
Yeah, it's a neat four-step process. First, the AI agent, the host, sends a structured request via its client. Instead of some custom command for each tool,
Uh-huh.
it uses the standard MCP format. BotPress had a good example. One single request asking for, say, recent GitHub commits and new Slack messages from a specific channel.
Oh, interesting. So it can bundle requests for different things together.
Exactly. One request, multiple data needs, all in a standard structure. That's step one.
Okay, makes sense. Then what?
Step two. The MCP server receives this request. Now it does the important checks, authentication, permissions.
Sure.
Is this AI allowed to ask for this data? It also figures out which specific backend systems need to be queried. It's the smart dispatcher.
Right, checking the credentials and routing the traffic. Very important.
Okay. Then step three is about speed. The MCP server contacts all the necessary systems, GitHub, Slack, whatever, and it does it in parallel at the same time.
Ah, nice. So it's not waiting for GitHub to finish before asking Slack.
Nope. Queries them simultaneously. This makes the whole process much faster than going one by one. Big efficiency gain.
Definitely sounds faster. And the final step? Getting the info back.
Step four. Once the server gets the responses back from all those systems, it takes that data, which might be in different formats, and standardizes it all into that consistent, structured MCP format.
Uh-huh.
So the GitHub commits and the Slack messages both come back looking similar, easy for the AI to understand and use immediately.
Okay, wow. That whole process sounds way cleaner than the integration hell you described.
Right.
So much more organized.
It really is. That's the core idea.
So let's talk impact. Why is this such a big deal? What are the real-world benefits for us, the people who might actually use these AI tools down the line?
The benefits are pretty significant, yeah. First and foremost, standardization. AWS really hammers this home. Having that common way for AIs to connect is huge.
Like the universal plug idea.
Exactly. It drastically reduces the need for all those custom one-off integrations BotPress mentioned. Saves tons of time, tons of effort. WorkOS agrees, talking about the saved resources. For users, it means AI tools are just more likely to work with the software you already use.
Yeah, sorry, I can't connect to that. And I guess that standardization leads directly to flexibility and scalability.
Right at it. AWS points out that developers can swap out the underlying AI model, maybe switch from Claude to something else without having to rebuild all those connections. That's huge.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And remember the different communication methods. That adds flexibility, too. BotPress notes that abstracting away that integration complexity makes it much easier to scale up AI applications. You're not locked in.
Makes sense. Easier to build, easier to change, easier to grow. What about the AIs themselves? How does MCP make them better?
This is where it gets really cool for the end user experience, giving AIs access to live, real-time data and letting them use other tools. It fundamentally enhances their capabilities.
So they're not just relying on old training data.
Precisely. Both AWS and WorkOS stress this. They get more accurate, more context-aware, more relevant responses, as WorkOS puts it. Think asking for driving directions, it can get live traffic data, not just the route based on old maps.
That's a game changer. From educated guesses to actual knowledge of now, WorkOS also mentioned unified data access. How does that work?
Right. Before MCP, developers often had to juggle separate plugins or connections for each data source. With MCP, WorkOS explains once you set up these standard connectors, the AI can essentially see all of them through one interface.
Like one key for multiple doors instead of a giant key ring.
Perfect analogy, yeah. For a user, it could mean your AI assistant seamlessly checks your email, calendar, and project tasks without you needing to configure 3 different things. It just works.
That sounds much smoother.
Yeah.
And what about keeping things running long term? Does MCP help with maintainability?
Absolutely. WorkOS highlights this. Because it's standardized, integrations built with MCP are less likely to break when one of the connected tools updates its own systems. Debugging is simpler too, less fragile, easier to maintain than a patchwork of custom code.
Okay, those are strong points for building and using these tools. But let's talk about the serious stuff. Security, compliance, auditability, especially if AI is accessing sensitive company data.
Critical point.
Yeah.
And MCP is designed with this in mind, according to Chris Cioli and WorkOS. It provides mechanisms to track who is making the request via the AI.
Accountability, good.
Yeah. And it allows filtering data based on authorization. The AI only sees what the user behind the AI is allowed to see. It can orchestrate complex actions across tools while maintaining context and security. Plus, importantly, it logs everything.
Audit trails, essential for business.
Totally. Zeoli argues this helps shift AI from being seen as a potentially rogue tool to a trusted enterprise agent. And he notes AI data requests are already exceeding human ones, so this structured, auditable approach is becoming urgent.
Wow, more requests than humans already. Okay, yeah, that security piece is vital. Worko has also brought up agent-led integrations. Sounds futuristic. What's that about?
This is looking ahead a bit, but it's exciting. WorkOS envisions a future where AIs become more autonomous agents. They could figure out which tools they need for a task, discover them via MCP, and then use them in sequence.
Like a smart assistant figuring things out on its own.
Kind of, yeah. The example given was a coding task. The AI uses MCP to check Git for code changes, then update a ticket in Jira, then post a notification in Slack, all orchestrated automatically through MCP.
Okay, that's a leap towards truly helpful AI assistance.
Yeah.
And one more thing from WorkOS, on-demand, scoped access. How does that reduce risk?
This is about fine-grained control. MCP allows developers to define exactly what an AI can do with a connected tool. Read-only access? Sure. Allowed to create new entries, but not delete old ones. You can set that up.
So limiting the potential damage if something goes wrong.
Exactly. It gives you guardrails. You can grant just enough permission for the task, minimizing the risk of accidental data overwriting or deletion, especially as AIs become more agent-like.
Okay, MCP sounds incredibly promising. Lots of upsides. But no technology is perfect.
Right.
Right? What are the challenges or limitations? BotPress mentioned a few.
Right, it's still evolving. BotPress did a good job flagging some key hurdles. First is authentication challenges. MCP itself doesn't yet have a built-in universal way to handle the huge variety of login methods out there. OAuth, API keys, SAML, you name it.
So connecting is standard, but proving who you are to each service might still need separate handling.
For now, often yes. External solutions or workarounds might still be needed, though authentication is reportedly on the MCP roadmap, so hopefully that improves.
Anyway, something to watch. What else?
Second related issue, unclear identity management. When an AI uses MCP to fetch data, who does the end system, like Slack or Salesforce, think is asking? Is it the end user? The AI itself, a generic service account?
Yeah, I can see how that matters, especially for permissions and auditing in a company.
Exactly. If Slack doesn't know it's you requesting via the AI, your access rights might not apply correctly. It gets complicated fast in enterprise settings. They plan to add OAuth support, which should help clarify this identity piece.
Definitely tricky.
Oh.
And the third point from BotPress was about vendor lock-in and fragmentation.
Yeah, the classic standards worry. Since Anthropic initiated MCP, there's always the question, will everyone else jump on board? What if Google or Meta or someone develops a competing protocol?
Right. Then we end up with multiple standards, which kind of defeats the purpose.
Exactly. It could fragment the ecosystem, forcing developers to choose or support multiple methods. That would dilute the core benefit of universality.
A valid concern. So how is adoption actually looking? Chris Zeoli mentioned some early players. Who's in so far?
Well, beyond Anthropic, adoption is actually looking quite promising. Zeoli highlights that OpenAI is supporting it in their Agents SDK, which is a big deal.
Oh, OpenAI too. Okay, that's significant.
Yeah. And Google DeepMind is planning Gemini support. Microsoft is integrating it with Azure Copilot. Then you have developer platforms like Replit and SourceGraph using it for AI coding assistance. Even Block, the company behind Square, is using it.
Wow, that's a solid list.
It is. Plus, there's a growing number of community-built connectors. Zeoli actually predicts a significant chunk of Enterpriseville. AI deployments will use MCP or similar tech by the end of 2025. So momentum seems to be building.
Okay, so maybe the fragmentation risk is lessening if key players are joining in, although BotPress still wondered about full commitment from all the giants.
It's still a fair question. Getting true universal adoption across Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, Meta, Microsoft. That's the ideal scenario to avoid fragmentation. We're seeing good signs, but it's not fully settled yet.
We'll have to keep watching that space. Now, WorkOS had an interesting idea about the future. Companies might start publishing their APIs as MCP connectors. What would that look like?
That's a cool thought. Imagine going to a software company's developer site. Alongside the usual API docs, they just offer an MCP server endpoint or a downloadable connector.
So connecting your AI becomes almost plug and play.
That's the vision. WorkOS even mentions Speakeasy, a company already working on tools to auto-generate MCP servers from existing API specs like OpenAPI. It could dramatically lower the barrier to integrating AI with almost any service.
That really would streamline things. Let's make it concrete. Can we talk about some MCP in action examples or tools? Microsoft's Azure integration?
Yeah, the Azure OpenAI plus the MCP integration is a prime example. It lets those powerful enterprise AI models reach out through MCP to fetch real-time data from other Azure services or potentially third-party tools.
So a business AI could check current inventory levels or recent customer interactions directly.
Exactly. It moves the AI beyond its static training data, making it immediately more useful for current business operations.
And Microsoft has tools to help developers build this stuff.
They do. They offer this semantic workbench, which sounds like a development environment, kind of a sandbox, for designing and testing MCP interactions. You can even run it in the cloud via GitHub Codespaces.
Handy for getting started.
And they have the AI Gateway, which seems like a plug-and-play interface using their Azure API management service. It helps manage the connection securely and provides tutorials for hands-on learning.
Sounds like they're really trying to lower the barrier to entry for developers. They even showed a basic Python example, right? Making a math server.
Yeah, a simple but effective demo. Build an MCP server that can add or multiply, then have an AI client using GPT-4o ask it a question like, what's 4 plus 6, 14?
The client sends the request via MCP, the math server calculates it, sends the answer back via MCP, and the client shows the result, 140.
Perfect. Clearly shows the AI outsourcing a task it can't do internally using the protocol. What about Zapier? They connect everything.
Right, Zapier's involvement is interesting. They were in the MCP beta. Their angle is connecting MCP-enabled AI agents to the thousands of apps on their platform. Whoa. So an AI could potentially trigger Zapier workflows.
That seems to be the idea. Imagine an AI using MCP to tell Zapier, add this new lead to Salesforce, then schedule a follow-up task in Asana and send a Slack notification. That hugely expands the AI's ability to act in the world.
That's powerful automation.
Yeah.
And WorkOS mentioned open source connectors too. For what platforms?
Yeah, the community is building things. WorkOS listed connectors for Slack, Git, GitHub, Google Drive, Postgres database, common tools developers and businesses use. And they pointed out that Anthropic's own Claude desktop app is a way to see MCP working, letting you connect to local or remote MCP servers.
So the ecosystem is definitely growing, both from vendors and the community.
It really seems to be.
Okay, let's try and wrap this up. Bringing it all together, MCP feels like a really significant development, doesn't it? What's the main takeaway?
I think the main takeaway is that this is potentially foundational. Like Microsoft said, a game changer. Chris Cioli called it foundational tech. It's about creating that standard communication layer. AWS's universal translator analogy is spot on.
Right. Moving beyond clunky custom hacks to something robust and scalable.
Exactly. It's about enabling AI to securely and reliably interact with the vast universe of external data and tools that exist outside the model itself.
And for everyone listening, trying to keep up with AI without getting overwhelmed, MCP seems like one of those key background technologies to be aware of. It's the kind of thing that will make future AI just work better, more seamlessly, more intelligently, without you necessarily needing to know all the technical details.
Precisely. It simplifies the complexity behind the scenes, enabling richer AI experiences up front.
So maybe a final thought to leave people with.
Well, it makes you think, doesn't it? As AI gets more woven into everything we do, how will these standardized connection protocols like MCP shape not just the tech, but our expectations? What will we demand from AI systems once they can easily connect to anything?
Yeah. How does it change how we interact with AI and how AI interacts with the world on our behalf?
Exactly. Something to mull over. What does truly connected AI mean for your work, for your daily life, and for the tech landscape overall? It's a pretty big question.